On April 13, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. sat in solitary confinement in the Birmingham jail, arrested the previous day for parading without a permit. Fellow members of the movement smuggled newspapers into his cell. King opened the Birmingham News and his eyes fell on an open letter from a group of Alabama clergymen, a letter which moved Dr. King to respond with a letter of his own. Excerpts from the 6,500-word letter have sparked movements and change throughout this world. In the same way, as I push back to those who fight against your focus, it's my desire to let you know that in the midst of a difficult year, you can remain focused. You still can win. Yes, you can make it. This is my letter from a Birmingham jail. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I just don't get it. You called me to this place. You led me to this place. You ordained what I was doing. And I still ended up here. Robbers, and killers, and criminals. And here I am, a man of God. I arrived here on a mission. When I got here on a mission, I found myself in prison. I don't know who's listening to me, but have you ever been in God's will and ended up in something you didn't plan on? One of the greatest mistakes we make is we think that being in God's will and being in purpose will keep you out of trouble. And I've lived now long enough to understand that sometimes trusting God and staying focused will put you in a fight. Sometimes staying focused will put you in the direct path of the devil. Sometimes staying focused will put you in a fiery furnace. You don't believe me? Ask the 3 Hebrew boys. They were remaining focused and ended up in a fiery furnace. Ask Daniel. Daniel, who stayed prayed. Daniel, who trusted God. Daniel, who never wavered, who fasted, who prayed, who sought God, who told the enemy no, who remained faithful, yet Daniel ended up in the lion's den. I just don't get it. How do the 3 Hebrew boys remain focused and end up in a fiery furnace? How does Daniel remain focused and end up in a lion's den? How does Jesus remain focused yet ends up on a cross? It's because one of the greatest mistakes that the enemy wants you to realize, he wants you to believe that if you ever get in God's presence, you won't have a fight. And so many people end up frustrated, depressed, confused, overwhelmed, because the moment they begin to trust God, the moment they begin to live right, the moment they begin to tithe, the moment they begin to fast, the moment they begin to pray, all hell breaks loose. I don't know who's listening to me right now, but if you've ever caught hell after you trusted God, you need to type me. If you've ever caught hell after you began to pray, you need to type me. Because so many people believe that if I give my life to Christ, if I serve God, if I go to church, if I live right, I won't go through anything, when the truth of the matter is, the closer you get to God, the worse the devil shows up. The more you pray, the more he tries to drive you crazy. The moment you pay your tithes, think about it. When you were clubbing and spending all your money doing whatever you want to do, you had overflow. But then the moment you begin to tithe, you run out of money. I don't get it. When I was sleeping around, I had friends, but the moment I give my life to Christ, won't nobody return my call. When I was going to the club, everybody hit me up. My car was full. But when I started going to church, all of a sudden they called me bougie. I don't get it. I thought focus would get me friends. I thought focus would get me finances. I thought focus would get me prestige. Pastor Mike, I'm confused. You got me fasting. You got me praying. You got me living right. You got me coming to church. I'm coming virtual. I'm tithing. I'm on the devotion, yet I'm still catching hell. It's because whoever God favors, the kingdom features, but the devil fights. And sometimes focus will put you in one of the roughest places of your life. You better ask Daniel, who did nothing wrong, yet he ended up in a bad place. Ask the 3 Hebrew boys who I told you last week, 2 weeks ago, that they remained focused. They didn't bow. They didn't bow, and yet still ended up in the fiery furnace. Because focus and favor is not an exempt or get out of free jail card. Focus and favor does not exempt you from the different trials and the different vicissitudes of life. If you remain focused, you will have to prove it. Ask Paul, who's serving God. Paul, who like many of you has a past. Paul, who like many of you was doing what he thought was the right thing, but yet he was doing the wrong thing. And can I pause and ask somebody, have you ever been doing what you thought was right only to discover it was the wrong thing? And the Bible says Paul saw a light in it, knocked him down. Then he heard a voice called out to him. Then for a couple of days he was blind. He goes into a city and he gets a transformation. God changes him from Saul to Paul. From Saul to Paul. God says, I have to change your name because I'm changing your assignment. I'm going to say it again. I have to change your name because I'm changing your assignment. And I would like to submit to somebody watching me right now that the thing that you need to be praying about God most isn't a new house, isn't a new car, isn't more money. You need to be asking God for a name change. God, take me from poverty to prosperity. Take me from stressed to blessed. Take me from depressed to self-esteem. Oh, I don't know who I'm talking to, but God, I speak a name change. God, I need you to change my name. Change my name. This is why grandmother would say, things I used to do, I don't do no more. Places I used to go, I don't go no more because I've been changed. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm getting excited. Why, Pastor Mike? Because when God changes your name, he changes your assignment. And when he changes your assignment, it aligns you for destiny. I'm going to say it again. When God changes your name, he changes your assignment. And when he changes your assignment, it puts you in alignment with your destiny. And I don't know who's going to receive this, but 100 of you need to just type, preach to me, Pastor. God says, I am aligning you with your destiny. The reason people are irritating you, the reason people are frustrating you, the reason you don't go certain places anymore, the reason you can't stand hanging around people is because they don't know your new name. And when they don't know your new name, they cannot comprehend your assignment. And when they cannot comprehend your assignment, they cannot come with you to your destiny. And I want to submit to you, because of the new name and the new assignment and your destiny, it may put you in a prison. Prison. I feel like these walls are closing in on me. I'm used to being free. I'm used to being able to come and go as I want to, but I'm in prison. I'm used to better conditions than this. I'm just used to being free. And I want to submit to somebody watching me right now that when you do not have maturity and you do not have focus, purpose feels like prison. Purpose feels like prison. Because when you come out of the world and you begin to change and you begin to live for God, certain places you can't go in, certain people you can't hang around, certain things you can't do anymore. And if you're not careful, purpose starts to feel like prison. It starts to, I was used to being able to live how I want to live and nobody said nothing. But now that I'm in purpose, people are looking at what I put on my page. They're judging all of my moves. It feels like the walls are closing in on me. Because whenever you don't have the proper amount of focus, purpose looks like prison. That may be why Paul was so comfortable in prison, because he knew prison was a part of his purpose. You might be asking, how did Paul end up in prison? Paul arrived to this beautiful place, and when he got there, he was met by a sister by the name of Lydia. Lydia, man, was a seller of purple. You have to understand, Lydia was a bad sister. She was an entrepreneur, yet she held down her house. I'm going to say it again. She's an entrepreneur, but yet she holds down her house. I wish I could pause and preach to a sister watching who can shout, I'm a double threat. I wish 100 women would just type, I'm a double threat. Yeah, I'm able to get money, but also take care of my house. I'm able to have a business and a family. I'm able to be all God called me in corporate America, yet still be the mama and the wife God has called me to be. I am a double threat. And you have to be careful when you are a double threat, because whenever it is you are a double threat, the weight of your assignment can feel like prison. Paul gets to this beautiful place and he bumps into a sister named Lydia, and he begins to share the gospel. Paul begins to share the gospel of Jesus Christ and the salvation. He begins to share the word of God with this sister. And this sister, the Bible says, it opened her heart. God opened her heart and she got saved. But the thing I love so much about this sister is that when she got saved, she in turn got her whole house saved. I'm going to say that again. When she got saved, she in turn got her entire house saved. I don't know who I'm preaching to, and I wish I wasn't confined, but there's somebody watching me right now. As a matter of fact, there are two types of people watching me right now. One of you, if God brings you out, you're going to come out and forget the people who helped you. But then there's another group of you that when God brings you out, everybody around you is coming out with you. I wish I had 100 people who would just tag every person who you bringing out with you. That when God gives me my next blessing, if you are connected to me, it ain't no fun unless everybody around me can be blessed. Because when God brings me out, everybody is coming out with me. She said, what I heard was so incredible, she had to tell her husband. She tells her husband she has to get her children. Because she said, my bloodline has to be blessed. Woo, I wish I had a parent who could just say, my children won't go through what I'm going through. My family won't suffer like I suffered. I don't know what my last name meant before I got here, but I know what it's going to mean after I leave here. God, I pray that you bless my bloodline. Do me a favor, type your last name. And I want to speak by faith that because of your sacrifice, because of your pain, because of your focus, everybody connected to you is coming out. Paul told me, he said, Mike, I didn't think much of it. We saved Lydia. This is what we do. We go from city to city, kind of transforming lives, and we saved Lydia. And I look at my partner, Silas, and I say, man, let's go to the temple to pray. When I got there, the first thing I wanted to do was pray. So I told him, let's pray. And we try to pray. Then we bump into Lydia. Then all of a sudden, I see a young girl who is a gifted girl. She's gifted, but yet twisted. She's gifted, but twisted. She has an anointing, but it hasn't been properly grown. She's an incredible young girl, man. She could have been a prophetess, man. This girl could have prophesied with the best of them. She could have prophesied to nations and kings and queens, but yet because she was in the wrong hands, they made her a fortune teller. I don't think you heard me. She could have been a prophetess, but because she was submitted to the wrong leader, she became wicked. She could have been used by God, but because the people who were handling her did not have integrity, they put her in an uncompromising position. The question I have to ask everybody who's trying to be focused is, whose hands are you in? To everybody who's attempting to do something powerful, to everybody who's attempting to be great in this life, the biggest question you're going to have to ask yourself this year is, whose hands are you in? What if your dream hasn't come to pass because you're connected to the wrong person? What if your business isn't flourishing because you don't have the right mentor? What if your career is at a stalemate because you aren't submitted to the right person? Sometimes being connected to the wrong person can cost you the right thing. This young girl becomes a fortune teller. She's a fortune teller, and she sees Paul and Silas, and she began to she begins to follow Paul and Silas, and she begins to follow Paul and Silas. She would walk behind them and say, these are men of the Most High God. These are men of the Most High God. She was saying the right thing, but she had the wrong spirit. She's saying the right thing, but with the wrong spirit. Isn't that crazy? Because they are men of God, but her spirit was wrong. See, this is why certain people don't understand why you don't come around. It's because they've never said anything bad about you, but what they said, although it was factual, the spirit was wrong. She's saying these are men of the Most High God. These are men of the Most High God. And she's mocking us. Then Paul does what he does. Paul looks at her and casts spirit out of her and began to transform and change her life. And that's when the problem started. They didn't mind me saving Lydia because Lydia made her own money. They didn't mind me saving Lydia because Lydia was independent. But when I saved this young girl who they were profiting from, they got mad. See, sometimes the devil doesn't attack you because of what you did. He attacks you because of who you blessed. Sometimes the devil doesn't attack you because of where you are, but who you brought out of where you were. They couldn't take that. They began to beat us. They began to scald Paul and Silas. They began to rip their clothes off. They began to torment them and beat them half to the inch of their life. It makes me think, man, maybe they should have just left her where she was. Is there anybody in your life that truth of the matter is you're catching hell for how you're trying to help them? I wonder if there's anybody in your life that the more you help them, it seems like the more the devil tries to take you out. What if I told you that the attack on your life has nothing to do with them? But sometimes the attack you're going through right now is because the devil knows if I cut off you, who is the plug? If the plug is broken, the light will never work. And a lot of people don't even realize, and they would appreciate you more if they realize half of the hell that you were going through wasn't even your hell. You're going through hell right now because the devil knows if I cut you off, it'll kill a lifeline to a whole lot of people. I don't know who I'm preaching to. I don't know who I'm preaching to. I don't know who I'm preaching to, but I wish 5 people who knew if you ever quit, a whole lot of people would suffer. If you ever stopped, a whole lot of people would go hungry. If you ever stopped, a whole lot of people would give up. I need every person who's been holding it down for your family, every person who's been holding it down for your circle, ought to just type, pray for me. Pray for me, Pastor. You don't know how hard it is to pray and intercede for people who in turn fight you, then appreciate folk who don't even love them. You don't know how hard it is to be there for people who won't even be there for me back. You don't know how hard it is to work 2 jobs to make sure people got food on the table and make sure they don't want for nothing, only to be the main one they disrespect. How you disrespect me when I'm the one making sure you got what you got, then be nice to folk who would backstab you in a heartbeat. Ain't it crazy how the people you do the most for are sometimes the most ungrateful people, but it's sometimes a part of your purpose. And the immature eye and those who lack focus sometimes view prison for purpose. It feels like a prison when your family is ungrateful and you want to say no, but you can't find it in your heart. It feels like prison when you know they're finna ask you for something and you told yourself all week, I'm not giving them nothing. Yet when you see their face, you can't say no. Because sometimes purpose feels like prison. It's a guy down the hall by the name of Samson. It's a guy down the hall by the name of Samson. And I was asking him when I got in, I said, man, how did you end up here? He's strong, man, muscles. And I looked at him. I said, man, how did you get called? He said, I was chosen from birth. He said, most people pick being a Nazarite, but an angel came to my parents and said, this boy is special. So from birth, I was called to be a Nazirite. And because I'm a Nazirite, they gave me 3 instructions. I said, what were those 3 instructions? He said, they gave me 3 instructions. I said, what were those 3 instructions? And he literally said to me, he said, number 1, I cannot consume wine or anything from the wine tree or the wine press. He said, I cannot come in contact with a dead body, and I cannot cut my hair. And I said, oh my God. He said, yes. I said, so 3 things you couldn't do. If you were going to remain focused, there were 3 things he had to stay away from. Don't consume, don't cut, and don't come in contact. Don't consume, don't cut, don't come in contact. I don't know who I'm watching right now. This man was strong. He was Herculean. He could wrestle lions, tigers, and bears. No man could defeat him. He would defeat armies by himself. And all he had to do was remain focused in 3 areas. He could live any kind of way, do whatever he wanted to do, but there were 3 areas he could not fail in. Don't consume wine or anything that was made from the grape or the wine press. Do not cut your hair, and don't come in contact with a dead body. And can you believe it? He lost focus. I wonder who's watching me right now. The truth of the matter is you failed in one of these 3 areas. Number 1, you consumed something you shouldn't have consumed. Consuming is not just drinking or eating, but it is also a euphemism or a metaphor for information. Consume is also a euphemism or a metaphor for information. You took in some information you shouldn't have got. Yeah, Pastor Mike, how does consume prove that consume is a metaphor or a euphemism for information? Think about it. When you're listening to gossip, you ask them for the tea. Tea is something you sip. So sometimes information, and many of you are failing right now, not because you are a bad person, you've consumed the wrong thing. Jesus, you consumed the wrong thing. You were a faithful person till you got around messy people and consumed their doubt. And when you heard that God didn't do it for them, you assumed because God didn't do it for them, he can't do it for you. When you got something they don't got, and it's called favor, you consumed the wrong thing. Many of you are frustrated right now. You were happy on your job. You prayed for that job, but then you got around people who were miserable on a job, and you consumed their negativity, and now you can't find anything positive about your life. Many of your relationships were great relationships. You loved your husband, you loved your wife, you loved your man, you loved your woman. Y'all had problems. Who doesn't have problems? But y'all found a way to work through it. Then you got with a girlfriend, and she began to give you all the negative stuff of her past, and how her man's sorry, and her man don't do nothing, how his wife don't do nothing, and his wife complained, and you consumed their problem, and now you're full on their foolishness because you consumed the wrong thing. This is why you have to get off Instagram. Let me out. This is why you got to get off of Instagram. This is why you can't spend all day on TikTok. This is why you can't be on everybody's timeline, because too much of that stuff is bad for my consumption. I remember one time I was at the house and we were cleaning up, right? And I left the cleaning supplies in the drawer, and lady has a lock she puts on the drawer, and she came in the room and said, make sure you lock that. I said, why? She says, Mason and Mike may not know better. They were small at the time. I said, what do you mean? She said, I had to explain to them that this is Kool-Aid, this is Powerade, this is Minute Maid. I said, what's the problem? The Minute Maid bottle looked just like the Clorox bottle in shape. And to an immature eye, because I drink from a Minute Maid bottle, I would assume this is the same thing. And I had to explain to him that although it's in the same type of case, this is not for consumption. And many of you are drinking in knowledge and taking in things that is toxic to your purpose. Where would you be right now had you not consumed that? Oh, woo! Somebody ought to type, keep your tea. Somebody ought to type, keep your tea. Keep your tea. I don't need to keep your negativity. I'm done consuming that. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to do me a favor. I need 100 of you when I get through preaching today to just go to your social media and say, when people come around you talking negative, just say, when they bring doubt about what God called you to do, and when they look at you and say, why you keep doing that? Because you taste bad. No. You trying to bring something that's antithetical to my taste buds. I can't consume that, because when I consume your foolishness and your negativity and your doubt and your insecurity and your worldly ways and your wicked thoughts, it derails my focus. I had 3, Samson had 3 areas to remain focused. Number one, don't consume. I'm confused. See, because you have to be careful when you're in purpose. Focus is the key. You have to be careful because my assignment isn't your assignment. I'm going to say it again. My assignment isn't your assignment. When we find Jesus at his first miracle at the wedding at Cana of Galilee, he turns water into wine. Wine comes from grapes. This is critical. I need you to catch this. Wine comes from grapes. But yet Jesus does not turn grapes into wine. He turns water into wine. That's critical. Is this somewhat of can we make this analogous to Samson? How Samson isn't to consume wine, but yet Jesus can turn water into wine. Why? Because Samson's assignment isn't Jesus's assignment. And many of you are losing focus because you're paying attention to the person in the lane next to you. Just because they can do it doesn't mean you can do it. This is why I need my word. This is why, Pastor Mike, truth be told, I thank God for you. You make the Bible come to life. You've helped me grow so much in God. Every week I come to your church because I need to consume the right thing. Ooh, somebody ought to just type, I need the word. Yeah, I need the word. When I'm having a bad day, I need to consume the right thing. When times get difficult, I need a good word. Samson said I wasn't supposed to consume, or this is crazy, don't cut your hair. It's critical, man. This brother, he showed me a picture, had beautiful locks. Oh my God. Beautiful, long, healthy locks. But he was not supposed to cut them. Not supposed to cut them. And I'm sitting there like, why? He said, my strength was in my hair. My virtue was in my hair. I said, Samson, then why are you bald head now here in prison? And Samson says, because I laid in the wrong woman's lap. Jesus. And here's what's crazy. Because me and him got pretty close. And Samson said, this wasn't my first time being in the wrong lap. One time before, I hooked up with a sister who was the wrong sister, but I got away. I said, why didn't you learn your lesson? He said, because unfocused people view grace as privilege. Unfocused people view grace as privilege. I said, what do you mean? He says, when you're unfocused, sometimes you assume because God lets you get out of that, he'll automatically let you get out of this. Sometimes you assume that just because God made a way then, he will make that same way now. I said, wow, that made me think about the other brother I knew who I met when I was in Bookend by the name of Moses, who God taught him in the wilderness to strike the rock. And when he struck the rock, water came out of the rock, but because he lost focus, he then in the second half of his life struck the rock when God told him to speak to the rock. And the problem is he still got the same result of the past, but he reneged and he did not walk into his future because he lost focus. Ah, man, cut your hair. And he lost his strength. Can I ask you a question? What did you allow to be cut that drained you? Better yet, who did you trust that took your innermost secrets and used them against you? I want to say this and I pray you can receive it. It may be the tweet of the day, the post of the day. Be careful of people who weaponize your weakness. Be careful of people who weaponize your weakness, who takes the very things you use or the very things that you confide to them and they then use it against you. Think about it. You told them that you grew up without a father and that was a weak area in your life. So then what do? They use the pain of knowing that you do not have covering to then manipulate your feelings into thinking that you're not loyal when you don't stand by their foolishness. They weaponize your weakness. You got to be careful who you trust. You got to be careful who you trust. Because if you're going to be focused in 2021, there will be wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. There will be people who speak and show signs of godliness who have no form of. There will be those who know Bible verses and scriptures who you will look at and say are integral and are humble and walk in humility, who are the most manipulative people you have ever met in your life. But because you are so desperate for connection, you confuse connection with covenant. Because you are so desperate for connection, you confuse connection with covenant. You so desperately want to be connected to somebody that the first person who attaches to you, you automatically assume you're in covenant with. That's not a bad thing. The problem that you have is that you keep thinking people will treat you like you treat them. You keep thinking people will be to you what you are to them, when in actuality, they won't ever be who you are because they don't have the level of focus and care that you have. Oh my God, who are you trusting? Who do you need to delete right now? Whose call do you not need to answer ever again? Whose room do you never ever need to go into again? Be careful, because connecting to toxic people will produce toxic results. I'm sorry, but I can't waste another year in love with toxic people. I can't keep giving advice to people who won't take it, then hold me prisoner to bailing them out. I can't keep staying on the phone with you all night knowing you not finna change. I can't allow you to trick and manipulate me into thinking that loyalty is slavery. You're toxic. You gonna give them your destiny? Samson. Oh my God, Samson. Samson told me to tell you that although your hair grow back, you'll never be the same person. And that's crazy because so many times we say things in church like, I got it back. Can I help you real quickly? I got a lot of stuff back the devil stole but me. I'm not who I used to be. You're going to make way more money than you lose. Your house going to be way bigger than the one that you lose. Your car going to be way nicer than the one that you drove. Everything about you going to be blessed. But can I free you? 12. Now the Lord said to Abram. That's the wrong spot. That's the wrong spot. Y'all don't even know where to do it at. Here we go, okay? Now the Lord said, oh Lord, I just saw Miss Bush, Jesus Christ. That's one of my teachers from high school, her family right there. How you doing? I'm so excited. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and all your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. Verse 2 is it. And I will make you a great nation. Here's my favorite part. And I will bless you. I'm gonna make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you. And to the ones who curse you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth will be. Find somebody with a smile on their face and say, I know I'm blessed. But now I'm ready to get in the zone. Sit down. I want to talk today. Get in the zone, in the zone, in the zone. And everybody said, amen. So we're in the midst of this series entitled Blessed. Somebody shout blessed. And I want to recap real quickly. Let's define blessed. I believe anything that is not defined does not have a strong life expectancy. If you cannot define it, you don't know if you're winning or losing at it. Now, we're not just friends. Define us. No, I need a definition because I'm going to live according to the definition, not the definition I want it to be. So biblically, blessed is a Hebrew word which means what? Thank you. Barak. It means Barak, B-A-R-A-K. It means to kneel, to empower, to prosper, to speak well of. But for the working definition we created for this series, my definition of blessed is blessed isn't about what you have. It's about who I am when I'm aligned with what God said. To be blessed means, it's on the screen, to be divinely positioned, internally strengthened, and externally favored to accomplish God's purpose for my life. Oh, that's a good definition right here. So for the next 4 or 5 weeks, when you hear me say bless, I'm not talking about what you drive and where it is you live and how much money you got in the bank. What I'm saying is I want you to be divinely positioned, internally strengthened, and externally favored. Why, PMJ? Here it is. It's on the screen. Because being blessed isn't just about having more. It's about being more. And I know you're not going to say amen in this little message of mine, but now that I done hit 40, it ain't about having more stuff. No, y'all got enough clothes and don't have closet space. I want something you can't get from the mall called peace. I want wisdom. I want to wake up. Here's something that's going to hit you with clarity and knowing what God has for me is for me. Hear me when I say this. Blessed is not just about having more. It's about being more. I want to be divinely positioned. So when I say divinely positioned, that means God puts me where he wants me, not where I want to be. Why, PMJ? Please put this in your notes. Because blessing starts with placement. Michael, blessing starts with placement. I didn't say this last week. I'm going to give you the C clause of this definition. If I'm in position, provision will find me. You missed what I just said. If I'm in position, because the blessing starts with position, provision will find me. So you know I like notes. In your notes, write provision, but put a slash in between it. Pro, which means before. Vision is that which God has called you to do. Okay? So when I say if I'm in position, provision will find me. Pro means what? Before, which means if I get in position, I'm not going to have to wait on it. It will be waiting on me. That's critical. So provision, why is that important, PMJ? I'm going to be divinely positioned. I'm going to be internally strengthened. Why, PMJ? Because before God gives me things, he gives me strength. Who did that bless last week? Before God gives me things, he gives me strength. This is my favorite part, because the true sign of a blessing isn't that life gets easier. It's that you get stronger. I'm gonna have church by myself today. The true sign of a blessing is not that life got easier. It's that you got stronger. Might I submit and suggest to somebody that the difference between this year's you and 2 years ago you is the fact that you've gotten stronger. And I hope you catch this, because I want to give you permission to celebrate right here, because too many of you are too hard on yourself. See, the reason you are so hard on yourself is because you're judging the now you juxtaposed or compared to the future you, when you should be comparing the now you to the old you, because I'm not who I'm going to be, but I'm a whole lot better than how I used to be. And I know you only shout for houses and cars and clothes, but 3 of y'all need to have a flashback moment and realize now that I think about it, I'm a whole lot stronger than I used to be. Stuff that used to bother me don't even bother me no more. People used to walk out my life and I'd be depressed for 6 months. They'd be gone now. I'll be at dinner 3 minutes later because something in me shifted. Just look down your row and tell them I'm stronger now. And you don't even realize it, because can I ask you a question? Your bills didn't get smaller. I'm gonna preach to y'all. They sleep over there. Your bills didn't get smaller. Now that I think about it, your problems didn't shrink. Now that I think about it, your headaches didn't stop, and people never stop getting on your nerves. What's the difference, PMJ? God shifted something on the... I don't know who I'm preaching to at this service today, but you sitting in between two people, one of them getting ready to complain about what they don't have, and the other getting ready to cry about what they don't have. And you sit in the middle like, I got 99 problems, but strength and praise ain't one of them. And now that I think about it, I want to thank God for every mountain that he brought me over and every valley that he took me through. I may not be able to drive what I want, may not have on Dolce & Gabbana, but when I look back over my life, I am stronger. That's why you blessed. A little more. That's why you blessed. Yeah, when I say blessed, I ain't talking about stuff. No, when I say blessed, I ain't talking about you got engaged this year. When I say blessed, I'm not talking about you got a promotion or you closed on a house. All that's cool. But what does it matter if you got stuff, but you ain't got strength? And I told you last week the reason that God gives you strength, Michael, before he gives you stuff, is because in your last season you got stuff and you ain't have no strength. So when the devil showed up, he just snatched it from you. But in 2026, when the devil show up, he gonna have to put some weight behind his pull. Cause I done messed around and got. I done messed around and got stronger. So hear me when I say this. The blessing, the true sign of a blessing isn't that life got easier. It's that you got stronger. And when we trace blessings throughout scripture, we see a pattern that we can take and make applicable to our life. As we build this bridge of contemporization from the original audience to now, properly harmonizing our hermeneutics with relevant homiletics, we see a pattern that we can take and make applicable to our lives. What's the pattern, PMJ? The pattern is God often adds strength, Michael, before he adds stuff. That's critical. Why, PMJ? Let's go. I gotta keep going. Look at this. We're gonna be divinely positioned, because y'all finna make me preach. I'm trying to save my energy for my dance moves, and y'all trying to make, I can't preach hard and dance in the same day. These knees can't, I gotta pick. Y'all gotta help me. All right, so hear me. To be blessed means to be divinely positioned. Number 2, internally strengthened. Number 3, externally favored to accomplish God's purpose for my life. So when you hear people say blessed, they're talking about stuff. I'm trying to get us past bragging about stuff. Why, PMJ? Because when all we have is stuff, we fall into the category of what I call deception of possession. The deception of possession. See, the deception of possession occurs when you have possessions without position. We have possessions without position. And when I say position, I told you last week, that's your mind state, your relationship strong. You're in a place where you know you are strong enough to handle what God sent. We had somewhat of a storm last night. Who woke up this morning? Leaves was everywhere and branches and trees was everywhere, but you slept good. You didn't wake up for none of it, did you? That's the best sleep in the world, ain't it? When you wake up like, what happened? Like that was good sleep, wasn't it? Well, I go outside today, it's certain pots and plants all on the ground, so I got out the car, put them back up. Only problem is I had put these, right, you know how you get the plants, you start feeling like you special, so you start getting plants that go in front of your door that make you look like, oh, they got a home. That ain't a house, that's a home. Who know what I'm talking about? That's a home. All right, but it's only one problem. We got this little bush right here by the steps, and bees have put like a beehive inside of it, so we be scared to go out the front door because the bees be going crazy. Well, as the man of my house, I took offense to that, so I went and got gasoline. I poured gasoline in the bush. I asked Chat said pour gasoline in it. I poured gasoline in it. I went to Walmart, got this bee spray. I'm out there with gloves and a mask. I'm just out there giving it to the bees, and it didn't work. I get there this morning, the storm blew over all the pretty stuff. That bush still strong. That bush, I done poured so much gasoline down that bush, the leaves brown, you can see the branches on it, it didn't move. And it hit me. There's a difference between being planted, thank you, Pastor D, and being plotted. See, I put my pretty trees in a pot. Those trees were planted, which means if a strong enough wind happened, it don't have no roots. That's the difference between you and your circle, which is why when drama shows up, they fall off and you just sway a little bit because you will be like a tree, Michael, planted by the rivers of water. And see, what people don't realize, they think you strong because of how much money you got in savings. I'm not strong because of how much money I got in savings. I'm not strong because of what my last name is. I'm not strong because I got 2 degrees. I'm strong not because of what you can see. I'm strong for what you don't see. And what happens is because sometimes we assume because we have it, we're ready for it. Just because you got it don't mean you're ready for it. Oh, that's good right there. That's good right there. Because in the kingdom of God, put this in your notes if you don't mind. In the kingdom of God, readiness isn't about what's in your hand. It's about where your heart stands. That's possession over position. This is so dope. This is so dope. We prayed for this for 14 years. Hear me. It's so dope. I want to be very clear. If some jumped off this week and we had to get out of this, I'm going to be all right. See, because this church ain't nothing but a possession. If I had to send a text blast out Tuesday, hey y'all, something happened. They done took the building from us. I don't know what's going on, but do me a favor. Join me at George Wood Park outside. I was raised in tent. We're going to have a whole tent outside. We're going to be in that tent fanning like grandmama did. You want to know why? Because if the devil takes my possessions, that does not shake my position. Did you catch what I just said? Because being blessed ain't about possessions. It's about what? Position. All right, let's start part 2 right here. Here it is. Because the blessing isn't random, it's structural. Michael. The blessing isn't random, it's structural. PMJ, that don't make sense. I'm trying to shout with you, but that don't really make sense. Let me give you this then. This may be tweetable. God doesn't bless who you pretend to be. He blesses who you're built to be. Michael, God doesn't bless who you pretend to be. He blesses who you're built to be. Now go back a slide. It's going to make sense because the blessing ain't random. It's structural. You're not blessed because you have. You're blessed because you're built. Did you catch what I just said? That's so critical. And what I need you to understand is a blessing isn't what you pretend to be. God has crafted you for blessings. That's why in our text we meet Abraham. I'm in Genesis chapter 12, okay? The book of beginnings. Genesis chapter 12, we meet Abraham. Let's pause and parenthetically digress because in Genesis chapter 12, throw verse 1 on the screen. I want them to see this now. Verse 1, boom. It says, the Lord said to Abram, I need you to put that in your notes because I'm telling you we're meeting Abraham, but at this point, he's not Abraham. This is for everybody in overflow and in the back and on the stream. This is going to be really good. This is Abraham pre-blessing. Girl, I'm going to get me a Baptist church. It'd be so hard preaching to y'all sometimes. I have to preach, tell a joke, sing, make you laugh, cry. If I was at a Baptist church with a grandmama and some deacons and the people who wear the nurse outfits who ain't been to nursing school, we would have had church right there. No, hear me. This is not. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, it's on the screen. Now the Lord said to who? Abram. He didn't say to Abraham. He said to Abram. This is pre-blessing. See, what he does as Abram determines if he gets promoted to Abraham. I'm finna pause and parenthetically digress. That's why your haters, your cousins, and your family can't figure you out. Because there are certain people who only see your Abraham, but wasn't there to witness your season of Abram. They didn't see how faithful you were when you had nothing. They just popped up when you became what God said. So now the Lord said to Abram, this is critical. Before Abraham, I'm saying Abraham, but this is Abram, same person, okay? Before Abraham received the promise, he had to leave 3 things. Put this in your notes. Am I doing okay? Yeah. He had to leave 3 things: comfort, control, comparison. Michael, that's good. Comfort, control, comparison. Put verse 1 on the screen. Now the Lord said to Abram, okay, I want you to stop me on the first thing God says to Abram, okay? I'm gonna read it out loud. You yell stop on the first thing God says to Abram, okay? He getting ready to promote him. Let me set the context, because the text without context becomes a pretext that's conning you out of the truth. The text can never mean what it never meant. So what I want you to see now is he's getting ready to promote him. God says, oh, I'm finna flip his life. I'm finna take him to another level. If I wanted to have church, but I can't have church because I got to do my dance moves tonight, and so I can't shout and do my I got it dance moves on the same night. So if we was gonna have church tonight, I would have told the whole church up right here. I would have said, God is sitting in divinity looking down at humanity, and he's looking for somebody that he can promote. He looks over the land and says, nah, 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 nah. But when he sees Abraham, he says, you. And can I prophesy that before 2025 end in your life, God, you ain't got to give me a new job, a new house, or a new car. Just give me one moment where you sit down. Stop. Sit down. No. 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 Real quick, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is you. I'm the one God gonna use to flip my family. I'm the one God gonna use to turn my situation. He just took out running. I dare you to touch 5 people and say, it's on you, it's on you, it's on you. That God didn't take you through all that for nothing. Get ready to walk into your unmerited favor season where stuff is getting ready to shift. Don't do it. All right, so look at this. Sit down, sit down. So I want you to stop me on the part where God speaks. Is that okay? Here it is. Now the Lord said to Abram, go. So the Lord, look at this. So look at this. No, we ain't finna shout. You're gonna learn today. So look at me. What's the first thing God, baby girl, says to Abraham? Go. He don't say pray. I'm finna say something now. I'm finna say something now you ain't hear preacher say. He don't say give. Because you can give your offering and live wild and still block your own blessing. Heaven can't be bribed. Why you think I spend way more time trying to get you to be better in 30 seconds, if that's talking about an offering? Because I don't want what's in your pocket. I want what's in your heart. I had a brother tell me yesterday, he said, man, I've been going to your church now 8 months. My girl got me to come. I came so she could just shut up. And I was like, bro, he said, I'm being honest with you, pastor. She just kept bugging me. We got into some stuff. It was over. And right when she walked out the door, I said, I'll go to church with you. I'm like, what? He said, I'll go. That's the level I'm on now. He said, whatever Pastor Mike tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. He said, so I came to church. He said, I even put on a whole little button down situation. We sat in the balcony. He said, that was like 8 months ago, so I've been coming. He said, I've been waiting every Sunday. Like, he finna get that money. He gonna get that money. He gonna get that money. He said, man, you the first church I've ever been to for the most part. All you talk about is what you want God to have for us. It's because I want you to get this. If heaven can't be bribed. Am I making any sense? It can't be bribed. He tells Abram, go. Why is that important, PMJ? Oh, this finna get gooder. This finna get so gooder. Hear me when I say this. Why is that important, PMJ? Listen to your boy. Listen to your boy. Listen to your boy. Listen to your boy. Because sometimes the promise doesn't come through addition. It comes through subtraction. Michael, sometimes God tells him, I need you to do me a favor. Put verse 1 back up there real quickly. He says, I need you to go from your country. So when I told you, he told him to leave comfort, control, and comparison. It's not in the text, but it literally leaps out of the text. It's not in the text explicitly, but it leaps out of the text. Look at this right there on the screen. Go from your country, that's your comfort, where you're comfortable, and your relatives, where you can control stuff, and the land, and from your father's house, so you're not comparing your blessing to your daddy. I want you to leave comfort, control, and comfort, control, and comparison. Why, PMJ? Now go forward a slide if you don't mind. Because sometimes the promise doesn't come through addition, Michael. It comes through subtraction. I want to give you something that I haven't heard anybody preach in a long time, okay? It's called, ain't nobody gonna say amen, but it's cool. The blessing of subtraction. Michael, the blessing of subtraction. Michael, sometimes God doesn't grow you by adding more to your life. He grows you by removing what no longer fits your next season. I'm gonna take a lap on that one. Sometimes God doesn't grow you by adding more to your life. He grows you by removing from your life what no longer fits your next season. Y'all did not hear what I just said, because I just fixed, 7 of y'all can leave right there. I just fixed all your frustration, because you sitting at home like, why am I losing stuff and losing people when they told me I was gonna be blessed? You don't realize God is letting you lose it now, because he's making room for what he get ready to send you later. That's only for 5 of y'all who done had people walk out, you done had stuff fall off, but you realize that God must be getting ready to do something. Jay, it's the blessing of subtraction. It's the blessing of subtraction. Because we often assume growth, put this in your notes, equals gain. But in God's kingdom, growth, here's a word we don't use in 2025, equals pruning. I'm preaching today. No, because sometimes he blesses you with subtraction. That's so oxymoronic. I knew this was gonna happen to me today. I told them at the early morning service, I said the blessing of subtraction, they took out running. Them my seasoned saints. That's when my church mothers and church fathers come. That's when my spiritually mature saints come. I said, it's the blessing of subtraction. Yes, Lord. Take it away, Lord. Take it away, Lord. The 9 o'clock is like, take what? Because some of y'all ain't blessed because your subtraction comes by your preference. You want him to fix this, but don't touch that. Michael, you want peace and a fool. You can't have both. You want to splurge and be blessed. And God is like, no, you can't not tithe, waste your money, and I give you overflow. So this is what we gonna do. Since you won't remove what you need to remove, I'm gonna make them not like you. You think they left you because there was something wrong with you. God made them not like you because he knew you didn't have the strength to kick them out their life, so he blessed you by watching you watch them walk out. This is too much. I'm tripping, right? I'm tripping because if 3 of y'all take a couple seconds and look back over the last 6 months, you're gonna say, I was over here crying over subtraction that's really addition. Y'all. I thought I fell off. I fell up. Y'all missed what I just said right there. I actually thought it was something wrong with me when ain't nothing wrong with me. God said, I'm getting ready to make room, so I just need you to touch 5 people and shout, he's preaching to me. We often assume, this is critical. This is critical. So we often assume, go back a slide if you don't mind. We often assume growth equals gain. That's good. We assume growth equals gain, but in God's kingdom, all right, to all my young people, a lot of time we use language that you don't understand. So when we say stuff like in God's kingdom, that's all the kingdom of God. The Bible ain't, I'm gonna do this one day, I'm gonna teach. The Bible is really about a king and his kingdom. And when we live right, we get to return to the kingdom.
So when we say kingdom of God, that's his way of doing things. It's kingdom is separated into two words, king and dominion. So it's a king and how he dominates, how he operates. So when we say in the kingdom of God, how God moves, he doesn't always use gain for growth. In God's kingdom, he uses pruning. Now, we don't understand what that means because we don't have that language no more. All right, so if we look at John 15, throw it on the screen, you'll see that when it says he cuts off. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Now leave that scripture up there. See, this is why I need you to stop crying. This is why before you waste another weekend or you waste another moment trying to figure out what happened, you need to ask yourself, why am I crying about a cut, look at the scripture, that bear no fruit? Y'all don't hear me in here. So he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Here's the word, and he prunes. Now, put this in your notes. I didn't say this at the 8 o'clock. Okay? There's a difference between the cut and the pruning. He cuts what doesn't have fruit. Go back. And he prunes the ones that do bear fruit. All right, let me free you. A cut and a prune look the same. Let me tell you what pruning is. He cuts. Let me tell you what a cut is. He cuts. What's the difference, PMJ? If it ain't got no fruit, he cuts the branch. If it do have fruit, let me tell you what he do. He lifts the leaves. He cuts off the leaves because what happens is because it has fruit, it's impossible for the fruit to grow absent the leaf. So what happens is if the fruit grows, the leaf grows, and the leaf will block the sun. If the fruit gets no sun, it dies. He looks at this tree with no fruit and says, cut the branch off. He looks at this tree and says, I tell you what, cut the leaf so the fruit can get some S-U-N. There are certain people God cut because they was blocking the S-O-N. There are certain people in your life who ain't bad for you. They just blocking God getting to you everything you need for you to become you. So he prunes the ones that do bear fruit. This way I can have church. So they will produce. I need a better church. I promise you, I'm finna jump in the portal. If y'all don't start having church with me, I'm finna get in this church portal and I'm gonna go to First Baptist somewhere. I'm telling you, I'm gonna move to Texas because I'm preaching right now. See, you should have been shouting because I ain't preaching to everybody. But it's some of y'all who are you in your bag right now. Some of y'all this year right here, you don't really want to tell folk how you really killing it because people be so negative sometimes. But I got to separate y'all for a minute. Oh, I've been on one this year. That don't mean I ain't lost nothing. That ain't mean I ain't had a hard time. But now that I think about it, oh, I got a God, you did your thing this year. Am I preaching to anybody in here that I still got problems, I still got pain, I still got pressure? But you know what? Yeah, God did that. God be showing out. He don't play about me. No! Somebody shout, he prunes. Why is that important, PMJ? Look at me. Because before every major promotion in scripture, am I doing okay? Thank you. Before every major promotion in scripture, there's always subtraction. All my millennials, hear me. What's after millennials? Y'all listen to me. This is what they don't tell us. Most of us weren't raised in a Bible teaching church. We had good church, but we ain't learned nothing. They taught us how to shout, So what happens is they taught us praise breaks, but not what to do when stuff break. You got me? So let me free you. 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 Before every major promotion in the Bible, there was subtraction. So before you open your mouth again, 30-somethings, 20-somethings, before you open your mouth again and say, God, I'm ready for blank, what you need to understand is you're saying, God, go ahead and subtract something so you can add something. No. Abraham had to leave his country before he received his covenant. Gideon had to subtract his numbers and his army before he could win the battle. Jonah had to get thrown off the boat before he fulfilled his mission. Jesus had to lose all his followers before he got resurrection power. All right, here it is. This ain't gonna be deep and it might even be ghetto, but I apologize. It's the only way I know how to say it. But put this in your notes. God math don't math. So, I'm sorry, you didn't teach me that, but I had to say it the best way I can. God's math don't math. It don't math. It don't math. You would think if I had a big dream, I would need big faith. He said, no, you got a big dream? That's cool. Just give me the faith the size. How much you made, 100? No, you ain't gotta give me 95. Just give me 10. His math don't math. Hey, God, what you want me to do? I want you to go fight. Go set my people free. That's cool. I got 30,000 people here. We finna go kill them. No, that's too many. Nah, subtract 20,000. What? How many you got now? I got 10,000. Yeah, that's too many. Get you 300. Hey, that don't make sense. It's 20 million of them. It's 300 of us. But you got me. Huh? He tells him to leave comfort, control, and comparison. If you can in the back, I'm so sorry. Can you put all of this on one screen so they can see it together? Please. The next slide, the next slide, the next slide. Thank you. Comfort says, I'll stay where it's safe. Control says, I'll move when I understand. And comparison says, I'll go when I can keep up. This is what we got to leave. This mindset. Comfort says, I'll stay where it's safe. Control says, I'll move when I understand. Comparison says, I'll go when I can keep up. I've never in my life felt good enough. Never. Even as early as this morning. There are certain thorns we're going to get as believers and certain mountains and that we have to overcome. Never felt good enough through middle school, through high school, through college. When I started my church, when I started doing music, I would walk in rooms. I can't sing like them. Comparison. I don't preach as well as them. Comparison. Well, we good now. We at the LR Hall. We got people coming. It only costs me $400 a week to have church. It's safe. Can I ask you a question? Sometimes, are you going to forfeit God's next step? But I want to give you this, because sometimes God's next step is uncomfortable on purpose. Put that in your notes. Sometimes God's next step is uncomfortable on purpose. That's so good. That is so good. Now I'm going to give you the B clause of that statement. You ready? Sometimes God's next step is uncomfortable on purpose to see how bad you really want to be in purpose. Why is that important, PMJ? I'm going to go really quickly right here. Because comfort is the enemy of calling. Did you hear me? Comfort is the enemy of calling. God rarely calls you to comfort zones. The last 7 minutes going to flip everything for you. I got you excited so you would listen. Oh, that's done now. Hear me when I say this. God rarely calls you to comfort zones. Please put this in your notes. He calls you to growth zones. This is good. Growth zones. What are growth zones, PMJ? Growth zones describe the mental, emotional, and spiritual spaces where development happens. Not just development, This is for 70 of y'all in the back and on the stream. Where you stretch beyond comfort without collapsing under the pressure. 70 of y'all got some real pressure in your life and you felt that. So right now, if you're listening to your boy today, if you listen to Pastor Mike today, listen to me when I say this. God's trying to get your mental and emotional and spiritual space to a place where he can develop it. When he does that, Kenya, that's called a growth zone. He's stretching you, go back, to the point beyond your comfort without collapsing under the pressure. Now, what I'm going to say right here, not even deep, but I'm at the age now where sometimes I just need to hear it. You ever get to that point in your life where you know you're going to be all right, but I just need somebody to tell me? You ever get there before? You just need that. So I'm going to say that what I'm going to say ain't deep, but I feel in my spirit you need to hear it. The pressure is not going to break you. It's not. It's not going to break you. 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 All right, now let me finish it. It's going to break you. But it's not going to break you. Come on, come on. Because who you are now is not who you need to be. So this thing that you're wearing, that's going to break. But the you were designed to be is going to shine through. Did you hear me? Growth zones. 6 minutes. I want to give you 5 zones that you're going to have to go through. Number 1, let's do this together. Comfort zones. Comfort zones. The comfort zone is where you feel safe, but stay the same. That's good. You feel safe, but you stay the same. The comfort zone, so watch this. I want to give you a mindset. What's the mindset of the comfort zone? At least I know what to expect. You're not in purpose. You hate getting up in the morning going there. They don't pay you what you're worth. You have to fight all day while you're there. But comfort says, look, I know my check gonna hit on Friday. Y'all dating. Fuss, cuss, scream. She do what she want, you do what you want. Both of y'all don't respect each other. But you know what to expect. Can I ask you a question? What's the trap of the comfort zone? Familiarity feels like faith, but it's really fear dressed up as wisdom. So you're telling yourself, no, I'm being wise. No, you're being scared. I was terrified when we got this building. I tell y'all that all the time. I was terrified. 5 years I would call and ask them, could I buy it with no money? Hey, is it for sale? Yeah. How much they want? 10 million. All right, I'll call back next year. 9 million. All right. I never forget the year it dropped to 7. I was like, 7? Okay. Then I called back, how much I want? 11. I was like, wait. How we go back up? The market. Like, okay. Then finally I got on the phone and said, hey, I ain't got no money. I was bold. Ain't nobody else in the city gonna buy this. There's only 3 churches that possibly could do it. 2 of them gonna already build their own buildings. The other one don't wanna come to this side of town. It's me. I'm here, we need to do this. I'm ready to buy it today. They said, well, let's talk. I don't have the money. I said, no, this is what we're gonna do. Y'all had no idea how much pressure I was preaching under that first year we got in here. I said, give me a year. Just hold a mortgage for me. I said, I'm gonna renovate it, hold a mortgage. If I can't close on it in a year, y'all can get it back. Imagine fixing this whole building. And every morning you wake up, all you can feel is your heart saying, 200 days, 150 days. I never forget the time we got down to 21 days and they told us, ain't no way you're gonna get no deal done in 21 days. And I'm in here preaching to y'all. All right, y'all, God bless y'all. We're so excited about today. And you know what? One day we're gonna get them dorms right there and we're gonna fix them and we're gonna do something. Who can believe God? We're like, yeah, hallelujah. Watch this. And never raise the extra offering like that. Hey, y'all, we got to build it. Listen, we got 21 days. If I can get 25 people. Because God had told me, sit still. Sit still. Sit still. We get to that point and all of a sudden conversations start getting rough. They start talking a little bit with a little bit more veracity. Well, you know, we can take that building and sell it. You fixed it already. Now I gotta be humble. Hey, yes, sir, I understand, but listen, I don't think that's what the Lord wants. Here's what we can do X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. And out of nowhere, the president of a bank in a whole nother state says, you know, the whole pandemic, all I listen to is just gonna be big. Where else do you close on a deal this big? Watch this. And they teach you how to close. No, you might want to go fix that right there. That don't look right. Like, oh, okay, what I need to fix? This right here? No, I'm just playing. But it made me realize, had I stayed in the comfort zone, we would still be in Forestdale parking in the mud. No. The second zone, throw it on the screen, I'm gonna go fast. The second zone is the fear zone. The fear zone, this is good, is where excuses sound reasonable. Stay with me if you can, Dre. Excuses sound reasonable. What's the mindset of the fear zone? What if I fail? What's the truth of the fear zone? Fear isn't a sign you're out of God's will. Sometimes it's the proof that you're stepping into it. See, some of you believe that when you start feeling fear, that might be a sign that this ain't God. Bro, for me, this ain't for everybody, but in my personal life, when I get scared, I be like, oh, this must be God. Because I'm crazy. Hear me. Hear me. If you pray for anything, give me my pastor faith. I am a plum fool. When it comes to God and faith, sometimes I feel like God be in heaven. Like when I get to the gate, we're going to be in that line and they're going to get there. Like, who got to the gate? Mike McClure Jr., all the angels and David are going to be like, hey, that boy crazy. Hey, you come over here with us. You crazy. Y'all don't know who this is? This is Pastor Mike. My faith is like, we was at the BJCC last night doing sound check. I looked at the staff when we was walking out and said, man, I think I want this. They looked at me like, this what? The BJCC, this be a good church, won't it? We can be right downtown. We can do all this. We can partner with UAB. We can have a children's theater for the young people, had a concert hall, all type of stuff. We'll put a little shopping plaza right here. I can't afford that. See, but what I'm trying to get you to realize is we get stuck in the fear zone. What does the fear zone say? It says, my excuses are reasonable. I'm not finna try to get that building. I ain't got no $100 million. Lord knows I'm tired of this apartment. I ain't finna try to get no house. You know my credit ain't right. Now those are facts. But do your facts trump your faith? How you don't know God got some on the other side? And he like, no, I'm just waiting on you to bust a move. Cause once you come out the comfort zone, once you come out of the fear zone, number 3, you step into the learning zone. This is where some of y'all finna go today. This is where faith replaces formulas. That's good, Mike. Faith replaces formulas. What's the mindset of the learning zone? I don't know how, but I know who. Michael, I don't know how, but I know who. I don't know how. Y'all keep seeing all this stuff. I love my babies, right? And so Mason just having an incredible year. But my oldest son, Xander, played football too. You know, so Xander, he been fighting. He been injured. His whole high school career just been injured. He finally healthy, but now he having to sit behind people. So seeing him be the big brother who rooting on his little brother, that was me and D. Like D would be scoring touchdowns. I was the big brother. We go back deep for punt returns. This was me. Get ready. He would walk out the gate. I'd be behind him. Y'all don't want to see what's gonna happen tonight? It's Gary. I was like, that was the best time. I dropped out of college for a semester to just watch him grow up. I would walk behind him, not with the phone camera. I had a big camera. Do you remember? He would wake up and I would be standing over him like this. The 4-star DB just woke up. How do you feel? He like, I'm good. Look at how he eats breakfast. I just love. So Xander has been celebrating his brother, and I just been telling him, stay faithful, stay faithful, stay focused, stay faithful, stay focused. Well, the boy got to start this Friday. Hey, and not only did he start, that boy had about 8 tackles, got an interception, almost took it to the house. Hear me? And I'm so excited. Why, PMJ? Because I'm grateful that although he's 18 now, he just turned 18, I'm excited that he had to experience trusting God for himself. So what happens now is that if he goes to whatever college he goes to, right? And he gets on that campus and life gets hard, he's learned, Michael, how to trust God. And in that learning zone, this is when you realize, look at the action, put it on the screen. You start seeking wisdom, acquiring new habits, and unlearning old mindsets. Some of you in the learning zone, go see what it looked like. Go see what it looked like. Well, what would it take for me to start my own network? What would it take for me to start my own streaming? So what would it take for me to close on it? What would it take for me to start a school? What would it take for me to get my bill? What would it take for me to be the Khaled of gospel? What would it take? Or am I gonna sit here and just say, well, you know, that don't happen for people like me? Let me ask you a question. Do we have Apple? Do we got Spotify? Do we got homes that have been built? Do we have daycares and colleges and universities? That's proof. If he did it for somebody, he can do it for you too. Number 1, the what zone? Comfort zone. Number 2, 3, 4, growth zone. This is where calling becomes character. I'm going over 8 minutes today, but I really want to get all this to you. Is that okay? This is where calling becomes character. When I get to this next slide, something in you finna shift. What's the mindset of the growth zone? You ready for this? I was made for this. I don't know who I'm talking to. Hey, I was made for this. I was made for this. Coach put me in the gym with y'all. I can't lift with y'all. No, when I go work out, it's fellowship. It ain't workout. You can look at me, I'm gonna get under the bench, I'm gonna go like boom, boom, I'm gonna get up. But you know what I was thinking the other day? It's a lot of talking, it's a lot of conversation, it's a lot of jokes. I ain't in there to work out, I'm in there to fellowship. That's what I'm in. That ain't my zone. That ain't my zone. Put me on the football field right now, the way these knees and ACL set up, most you gonna get from me is, hey man, you gotta do the thing, you gotta run it. You ain't running harder. That's all you gonna get from me. That ain't my zone. Put me in church. I was made for this. I could stand here, and I mean this from the depths of my soul. I could preach for the next 6 hours. I can't explain it. Can't explain it. I love making music. I sit in the studio certain days and be like, they just got off, they're getting in the car, finna go to a job they don't like. I need them to play this so they can smile. I'll be picturing, how can I make their day better? How can I make a brother? It blesses me when I hear a young brother say stuff like, hey, his church all right. His church all right. His church all right. I was made for this. And I pray you get to a point in life where you wake up every day and get the opportunity to do what you were made for. Am I preaching to anybody? I'm gonna go home on this, man. Number 5, the glory zone. This is where your development becomes your declaration. It's a little cold in here. This is where you say, y'all gotta tell me when it's cold. I don't be knowing if you shouting or cold sometimes. This how grandmama shouted back in the day. Y'all gotta look at me and be like, that air worked though, don't it? It worked, don't it? We ain't have no air at the old church. We got air now, huh? Look at the mindset of the glory zone. This is good. This was God. I believe this is where I am and why we're having this celebration tonight. It ain't like the stunt or nothing like that. Y'all know that. I'm probably the only pastor in the country that don't have a African-American pastor in the country who don't have a pastor's anniversary. Who remember growing up and it was the pastor's anniversary? Remember he walked down the aisle and sit in them living room chairs? Y'all remember them living room chairs, don't it? Yeah, I was a pastor's kid. That was the best time of the year. We would sit in them living room chairs and then the usher boy would walk up with like a tree with dollar bills on it. He'd be like, on behalf of the number 2 usher boy, we want to give you. I used to be sitting back like, oh, we're gonna get a PlayStation. Like, we didn't have nothing growing up, so the pastor's anniversary, me and Dee be sitting over there like, we don't have a pastor's anniversary. I ain't got no pastor's love offering. That ain't why I do this. Tonight ain't about just, the Lord said, Mike, and I think it's 40, get me to this place where I want my best message not to be what I preach, but what I lived. I got men, you wanna know one of my greatest compliments? It's like, I got 5 that I kind of keep in my heart. One of them was when Deacon Karan, some of you may remember this, my boys were little, and I'm a learner, I'm a student. I met this very famous pastor, I won't name drop, and everybody was shaking his hand, they was joking like, you gotta bring me to preach, everybody. He walked up to me, like, what's up, young man? I said, tell me one thing you would tell your younger self. And he just looked at me. He said, maybe I didn't have to preach all them conferences and travel across the country as much as I did, because you look up and you don't know the people in your house. I said, thank you so much. That changed my whole life. Experience isn't the best teacher, it's the hardest teacher. My pastor taught me that. He told me in 10 seconds what it took him 40 years to learn. You know what I did? I came to church. Some of y'all remember this. That Sunday, I said, hey y'all, how y'all doing? My son's in the fourth grade when I coached the flag, 3rd grade. I said, my son in the 3rd grade. That's my bonus child. We have a blended family. I went and asked him how things were. And he literally said to me, Dad, we ain't got nothing that we do. I said, and I just talked to a pastor who gave me some wisdom. So here's what we're gonna do. Today is the 4th Sunday in August. I won't be preaching Bible study no more this year. I'm finna go coach flag. Don't know what I'm doing, don't know how I'm gonna do it. But I don't wanna look back and he turned 18. He's 18 now. And I don't know him. So I stopped coming to Bible study. This was back when the church wasn't even, we got a flag football team. I don't even know how to be a flag football coach. I'm on YouTube looking at flag football plays, but we get on the team, we go to the championship, we lose. The next year we win the championship. I'm talking, it was the best time ever. Best time ever. Best time ever. But my greatest compliment is when Karan, the next year, Deacon Karan walked up to me and said, hey, Pastor, coaching girls soccer. They didn't win no games for 4 years. He called me one Saturday, we won, Pastor, we won. I was like, congratulations, my brother. But that was the best sermon. It wasn't me in here saying, God gotta, it was another man saying, you know what? I'm gonna be a better father. And so for me, the Holy Spirit said, Mike, there are certain moments of your life where you gotta stop. Because if you don't think you know how to celebrate you, they don't know how to celebrate them either. If you take 7 seconds to think about all God's done in your life, and you ain't ever stopped and just said, you know what? I'm proud of me. You came from where you came from. You survived what you survived. And you still here. And it's only by the grace of God. Lord, I pray a special prayer that I said something that penetrated their heart. That in spite of that nefarious nemesis we know as the devil who tries with all of his might to thwart our thinking and attenuate our faith, we've assembled to tell God we're grateful for every mountain that you took us over and every valley that you take us through. I pray, God, that as we find ourselves in these different zones, that we'll always push to be better. That if somebody's in their comfort zone, they'll leave here today saying, you know what? I'm at least gonna promote the fear. I'm playing it safe. I'm at least dream at a level where I can get scared of something. I can at least shift the growth. I'm gonna get to that glory zone where I realize it was God all along. So God, we thank you in advance for simply being God. And I ask that you keep your hand on our lives. It's in Jesus' name we pray, and everybody said,